morning. Thank you all for being here today. There's a strange feedback thingy. Maybe it's this one. Yeah. Hi, welcome to A Model Map of Fiction, the 36th edition of Transmediale Festival. My name is Nora Murchú. I'm the artistic director of Transmediale, and I'm here today with the conference curators who have been working alongside me over the past year, putting together this conference, and also meeting with a lot of participants and artists and academics and activists. This year's festival, or this year's conference discourse program, is very much thinking through what happens as a consequence of image-making technologies and their artifacts and operations scaling. And we wanted to create a very diverse program that opened up a number of questions that looked at the impact of this, but also tries to maybe figure out a way to bring a new set of tools and tactics into action for a new type of collective politics that maybe can also scale in different types of ways. So I wanted to say welcome everybody, but also I wanted to welcome these curators who've worked with me so hard over the past year. And I'm going to leave you say something, I guess.
Okay, thank you so much, Nora. And welcome, everyone. My name is Bani, Brusadin. I joined the curatorial team for Transmediale 2023 with a lot of, honor and a privilege to be part of this such an intense and actually enriching process. Probably you can imagine that, like looking at the program, but in the course of the last few months, we've been actually discussing with and exploring the work of those and actually hundreds of really interesting researchers and artists and creators in general. And some of them actually made it to the program for a number of reasons, but we are really thankful also to all the people that didn't make it. It was like an extremely enriching process. Personally, I've always been interested in my career about all the overlappings between critical technology, digital cultures, also artistic experiments, and something that tentatively we may call infrastructural knowledge and even activism. And that's the reason why I believe that Transmediale is really a unique conversation space. For a very specific, but also very ambitious range of research. I mean artistic research, but especially that kind of artistic research that follows less conventional methodologies. And at the same time, artistic research with its own methods and temporalities and outputs is also matched in the program of Transmediale, as you know, with some areas in academic research where knowledge production is actually also experimental, takes risks, and works as fuel itself for artistic production in some sort of a creative feedback loop. And this knowledge production is a specific form of cultural reproduction of things that actually contribute to the strengthening of aesthetic and political action from below. That's I think, our purpose. Talking about scales means a lot of things, but among them, I think that talking about scales actually asks us to deal with issues of disorientation, lack of orientation, lack of coordinates, dispersion, volatility, and also new conflicts, all the new frictions that emerge in these scenarios. And a strange way to put it, but let's say we've built really powerful lenses to look at different scales in this world. But we need to ask, where should we look? And we need to ask, what about these powerful lenses? In which hands are they? And not only that, now we also realize that the realities that we are able to see through those lenses might not be enough to produce knowledge. we realized that a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, those realities are either indifferent to us or even hostile to us. We realize that those very lenses are sometimes even amplifying or provoking new forms of injustice. We realize that sometimes they even erode people's agency, at least some people's agency, or even other kinds of agency, like more than human. So our very actually simple proposition is that certain maps, models, and fictions can become, indeed, scaling machines that require some sort of a recalibration of human vision and, in general, all human senses. And even more importantly, they ask us to redefine the very frameworks that are needed to engage with the world. What is political action, for instance, or ethics, or whose ethics, or under which conditions are affects and memory built, among many, many others. Just to finish, just a very brief note about how we developed this complex set of themes. We followed three very basic principles: gathering examples, case studies, evidence sometimes. Second, trying to build models, to invite people who are working on building models to understand these scalar issues. And third, to highlight some possible direction for future action. We were not interested in just making big repository of people dealing with these topics, like a catalog of things. We had some kind of direction to follow. So we try to aim at some sort of a variety of formats and approaches and tones, but also with really careful work to build some thematic cohesion. I'm not sure we succeeded, but that was the aim, to give some sense of cohesion in this. Cohesion and direction, as I said. This direction is, as Nora said at the beginning, the production of some kind of actionable knowledge for some kind of collective political action, for the common good, for emerging public spheres and aesthetics. We've tried not to build just the usual transdisciplinary program for a very simple reason. We wanted to show that there's a lot of knowledge both within established disciplines and also in some radically different territories outside of disciplines. And we need to bridge these things, to establish some kind of exchange and connection. The world we live in might be known provisionally, speculatively, tentatively, but no specific way of knowing has to be hierarchically superior to the others, especially at a time when not being able to know is itself a key part of the problem. Thank you. Elise?
Hello. Thanks, Bani. Thanks, Nora. I'll maybe keep my comments a little bit briefer because Bani covered so much. But I think first I just wanted to say that, although this is my second year working to curate the festival, the conference with Transmediale, it's the first time that we're back together in person. So it's really, it's very exciting for me to see people in the audience, and we're very happy that you're all able to join us either in person or online. Through streaming. And we're really excited about coming back together because we really wanted to continue to develop and build upon this continue to open this welcoming and inclusive community in a way that continues the work of last year, especially considering the ways in which we have had to work over the past few years. So I just wanted to say that part out loud. And so together with Nora and the entire curatorial team, of course, with Jussi, with Bani, but also with the curators of the with the curator, of the exhibition, Lorena, and then Ben with the film program, was really about developing a conversation. So and Bani already mentioned this as well, but it was really remarkable to spend the year, because this is, a very long process. It was really remarkable to spend the year speaking with so many, with the hundreds of thinkers and artists and practitioners and activists who we either, read or reading already, that we were able to meet with, or who we, thought with in various, ways and conversations over the course of the year, and asking ourselves and each other in many different ways, how can thinking through and with this theme of scale alter or clarify, but alter, how we understand our socio-political condition or our relations with one another and with ourselves. And by formulating this year to ask what's at stake in these scalar reorganizations of worlds, we hope that a model, a map of fiction, can challenge both these instrumentalizations and affects that we'll discuss and discover over the course of the next 5 days now. And scale, one last thing that I'll mention is that scale was not only the theme of the conference, but it was also in a way our method. This new site as well allowed us to think in concrete and spatial terms how we come together in both real and virtual ways. And so with this festival, you'll see in the program, and you'll experience it over the next few days and evenings, comes familiar formats, panels, conversations, lectures, and performances, and demos that are programmed and planned in some unfamiliar ways. So we hope that you get the chance to experience one of all of them as you wish. And I just would like to, turn it over to Jussi and say thank you again to all of you for joining us, and thank you to all of you for, being so incredible over this past year. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you. What I'm going to do is briefly echo many of the things already mentioned, many of the things already said. I want to start by also saying that I'm very happy to be working with Transmediale again, this time round in the curatorial team. I currently work at Aarhus University, so this is also a nice continuation of the long-term PhD workshop collaboration that my colleagues in digital aesthetics have been active in with Transmediale for a long time. As already mentioned, it's been a really rewarding year of working together, where we have mapped existing uses of the notion of the scale, notions of scale and scaling, while also trying not to offer a generic a bit of this and bit of that kind of a festival. Over the past year or two, there have been several books that have addressed scale quite directly, from media studies to philosophy to visual culture and arts. Many architectural scholars and studios have taken up the theme as well, again, at the back of different imaginaries, historical imaginaries, from Cold War megastructures as well as nanoscales to more recent debates about the notion of the planetary. Scale has become one of those traveling concepts that is not specific to only one academic or practice-based area across architecture, media studies, design, geography, critical geography, and many other fields as well, not least indeed art and artistic research. Scale features at the intersection of environmental and political questions, and the sort of techniques of scale that are mobilized in computational practices. There's one quote that stuck to me early on in this process and our work, and one that has remained with me still. It's from Maxley Boyron concerning scale as relations that matter. They write, "Knowledge systems such as political ecology, cultural geography, and environmental justice are just some of the ways to look at how systems of value and knowledge animate relations. Scale is another." So if anything, Transmediale is very much in the business of animating relations. And this quote echoes much of what we are also after. that we start in the messy and complex world of contemporary objects and issues, trying to figure out what methods and what concepts are suited for the job. I think it was really Svetlana Matvienko's McLuhan lecture and conversation with Nabil Ahmed was on Tuesday, for those of you who heard it, was a good example of asking how do we deal with phenomena such as debris, nuclear terrorism, how do we make sense of atmo terror, but also the ecological crimes across global south too. These phenomena show how distributed, scattered, dynamic, atmospheric hazards, aggressions, risks are not necessarily localizable in just one place, that they are not always concrete in the simple sense, but challenge how we approach their scale, including chains of culpability, responsibility, and response. Scale is then not just a given topic that we would then work around, addressed in different disciplines, but it's also a challenge to existing scholarly and artistic methods, including questions of visualization and modeling of multiscalar realities. So my own recent investment in the topic has been mostly about how visual culture has transformed into something not necessarily visual at all. This rescaling of questions of image and sensing and their political impact comes across in several of the panels as well that detail the devices that model and reproduce the world. Volumetric technologies, holograms, operational and synthetic images, non-visual visual culture, logistical systems, and recursions at the back of sensing and capture of data. Also, Ranjot Singh Dhaliwal's text for Transmediale is a good cross-section of many of our concerns as far as images are concerned, as was, for instance, Simone Nigil's yesterday's performance lecture. I'm interested in how scales are both media techniques and collective imaginaries that act as fundamental design traps of our age. To capture something in a particular scale is to be able to control it. So the aesthetic, even ethical questions of our age then really are, on which scale do you exist or are made to exist, sense, and alter your own conditioning scales of existence? Scales are also premised to the capacity to act, imaginaries of empowerment for good and for ill. So already mentioned is that one of the questions that we're really interested in is also the connections between aesthetics and ethics of scale. We're likely to hear Anat Singh mentioned many times, but also probably many other scholars like Joanna Zelinska, Minimal Ethics for the Anthropocene, or for instance, Rosie Braidotti's Post-Human Ethics, in relation to questions of non-human scales as well, including histories of dehumanized, sexualized, racialized others, naturalized others. So we have quite a task ahead of us in the coming days, but I think we have exactly the right sort of people talking and performing who can take the whole topic beyond even our initial setup. Thank you.
As Jussi said, we have a very dense program over the next few days for you all to enjoy. So I really hope that you're able to take in some of the conversations and also some of the concerns that are really at the heart of this year's program as well. To kick us off, actually, to kick off this program, I wanted to invite Anthony Downey, Ala Mansour, Lesia Kolchaneska, in conversation with each other. Their panel today, or their conversation today, explores how images are mobilized to exploit feedback and create different types of realities. They are going to be talking about infrastructures of data capture and what happens in the imaging processes that are kind of connected to these algorithmic apparatuses. Their conversation is moderated by Zoe Samudi, and Anthony and Lesia are actually online, and so I'm going to now invite Ala and Zoe up to the stage. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.